All right, we're going to switch over to Richard in Cleveland, Ohio. Aloha, Richard. What's on your mind today?
Monetary reform. I think the same kind of topic that you were just talking about. I wonder if you're aware about the situation in Russia. I know I've heard you mention it a couple times. It looks like they're going to be completely debt-free by the end of this year. They just have a couple of countries they have to pay off for. I guess it was old debt from when the Soviet Union kind of collapsed or went down.
Yeah, that's what they're paying off is the debt left over from the Soviet Union. Russia still has current debt that it's dealing with.
Well, I mean, I think are you familiar with Bill Still?
Yes.
I saw a video that he put out recently that said they were going to be debt-free. Now, I kind of wonder if that isn't the reason why they're demonizing Putin right now.
There's no question about it. There's no question about it. Russia's central bank is privately owned, and it was being privately managed, and Putin took over, he imposed government control on Russia's private central bank in order to manage Russia's public currency as a public utility. And that was literally the day that Putin went from being a trusted friend and partner of the United States to the top of the U.S. government's special high-interest targets list.
So let me ask you a question. Now, I'm not really sure, but do you think that basically they are issuing debt-free currency, like that they are actually creating their own money and spending it into circulation? Or, I mean, is that what they're doing?
I think they're still using the private central bank fiat system because they need to have that to interact with the rest of the world. But I think Putin basically is keeping the interest and the debt under control. Because when you have the bankers running the private central banks, all decisions are made in terms of what will bring more money out of the population and put it in the bankers' pockets. And Putin is running the Russian central bank to keep as much of the Russians' money in their pockets as possible, and that's why he is so hated right now.
Well, I'm just wondering, because, I mean, how can you be debt-free if you have to borrow? You know what I mean? So how can you get to that point if you're not actually just creating it?
It's a subset of the debt. And yes, in many cases, you can inflate the debt away by printing up more money, but it simply represents a new debt that has to be dealt with down the road. And if you really think about it, all of these debt-based private central banks are pyramid schemes or Ponzi schemes. And they're able to last as long as they do because they're basically their victims are the entire populations of nations. Here in the United States, 330 million Americans, and that's why the Federal Reserve Ponzi scheme has been able to survive for a little over 100 years, although it looks like it's about to take a major stumble.
I have one more thing to ask you about. Are you familiar with the Chicago Plan? It was the University of Chicago Economics Department. In the 1930s, they came up with a monetary reform plan in response to the Great Depression because they were kind of asking themselves, well, how can we prevent something like this from happening again? And there's a guy in Chicago named Steven Zarlenga. He wrote a book called The Lost Science of Money, and is basically championing the Chicago Plan. Now, Dennis Kucinich, a couple of years ago, introduced a bill called the NEED Act. And I want all your listeners and everybody to look into this. It's called the NEED Act. And he introduced this bill to Congress. It was a monetary reform bill. And basically went into committee, never came out of committee, and then they redistricted Kucinich, and he lost his seat.
Yes.
But if you've never looked into it, look into the Chicago Plan. And it's wonderful, and it would save America. It would save the world, really.
Well, I'll take a look at it. The problem is that the economic plan that works best for the nation and the people is not the plan the private central bankers want. Private central banks do not exist to serve the nation and the people. Private central banks exist to serve themselves. That's why the Rothschilds are so amazingly wealthy. They've been playing this scam on planet Earth for 300 years. Okay?
Yeah, but it looks like one of the major powers is doing something like that, like Putin over there. And if we got a crazy little uprising here, maybe we can do it here, and maybe we can get away.
I'd like to see it happen here. It's time for this private central bank scam to go away. They've made enough money off the slave labor of the human race. It's time for it to come to an end. Anyway, Richard, we're going to let you go here because we're about to take a commercial break. When we come back from the commercial break, we're going to do one more phone call. Then we're going to close the phone lines again because I got a lot of news to go through in hour number 3. So we'll be right back.